Welcome to Through the Lens of Astrology. I'm your host, Heather Arielle, and we are still in Pisces season. So that means we have the sun in Pisces. March 2nd, we celebrated new moon in Pisces. If you missed that episode, you can catch it on my YouTube channel, Heather Arielle's House of Astrology, or my podcast, Astro Oracle, Through the Lens of Astrology. And we also we have Venus and Mars. Okay, they just changed signs. On March 6th, they entered Aquarius. So we've got a lot of Pisces and Aquarius energy to celebrate today. And part of what I like to do is part of the what's behind the show is finding fun, creative, personal ways to connect to the energy, right? The astrological energy. So then we can make it personal and start to activate it. So we're going to be talking about Pisces and Aquarius and how to really engage with it. Now, all right, take a step back. So one, it always starts with your natal chart. So if you don't have it, what's all you got to know is your birth time. If you know your birth time, build your chart, right? An app, you can get it free online. You can go to my website if you want to, order something. But once you have your natal chart, then you want to look at your chart and say, okay, uh, do you have Pisces? Do you have Aquarius? Since that's what we're talking about today. And I say, for those of you who have this energy in your natal chart, then yeah, it's your time to kind of step up to the plate and contribute your gifts to the group and the world because they are really needed. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about, if you say, okay, well, I don't have Pisces, I don't have Aquarius. Okay, well, that's why if the energy is in those signs, we all can access that energy, right? While the sun is in Pisces, it's a little bit easier. But there's also another way through rulership. So I'm going to touch on rulership because maybe you have a very strong Neptune in your chart. Well, guess what? That brings in Piscean energy. Maybe you got a lot of 12th house planets. That's going to bring in Piscean energy. Okay. And then with Aquarius, it's like, all right, well, what's Uranus doing in your chart? Do you got a lot of 11th house planets? What's going on? So there are also other ways to look at the chart to see, to what are you resonating? Okay. So then that's, another way to say you have access to that energy because astrology is full of nuance and duality. So we always want to be like looking at the layers, right? Allowing for the layers to be developed. And also, it helps to make it personal because then you can say, oh, okay, I didn't realize Neptune on my ascendant is going to give such a Piscean flair. Okay, that makes sense. So it just allows for more complexity. So I'm also going to be I'm going to take Venus and Mars through a few houses because, especially with Mars, if you follow the program, I always let you know what sign is Mars in and what does that really mean? Because you'll want to know what is happening with your Mars and with the Mars in the sky by transit, because Mars is warrior energy. It makes things happen. It's active. So you always want to know, like, okay, what house is it in? Remember, there are 12 houses in the astrological chart. Each house is an area of experience. Where is Mars? Because it's going to activate that area. So because Venus is basically, kissy face with Mars right now, they're just kind of together in Aquarius, then you'll know Venus and Mars are together activating those houses. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then if you've been following the news, a lot of the commentators, when you talk about Ukraine and Russia and what's happening, a lot of them are talking about it in terms of David and Goliath. And if you saw the CBS Sunday Morning recently, Mo Rocco did a really in-depth piece on the history of David and Goliath and what is that all about. And, so it's always something to talk about extreme power plays, right? They happen to all of us. They happen to countries, right? Like that's a huge power play. But we all have to deal with power plays. And what is the astrology of power plays? Yeah. And I even created a unique oracle card spread to help us overcome power plays and to empower ourselves. So I'm going to do that to help us, what can we do? It's all about how do we balance the scales, right? Because a power play, you got those Libra scales that like to be in balance. And it's like, whoa, whoa, you know, how do we regain equilibrium, right? What do we do? So, yeah, so I'm going to be referring again about Malcolm X, and we got a what's our weapon? Or I like to say, what's our gift? But, you know, hey, we got it. We all got one. So it's about identifying that. You may not have resources, right? You may not have money. You may not have, you know, hacking skills or things like that that put you at a big disadvantage, but we all have a gift or a weapon. It's identifying that, right? And magnifying it. Okay. All right. So that's coming up. All right. Okay. Piscean energy. It is, you know, we have an evolution in astrology where the whole Western zodiac begins with Aries, and that's coming up with the spring equinox. It gets everything going, and it all just develops and transmutes, and there's an evolution. So that's why there are all of these different steps, and we want to contribute our energy right to the group, and we want to make sure that no project or relationship skips our step. Well, Pisces, oh my gosh, it is astrologically connected to the highest levels of consciousness. That's what it allows for. Now, remember, no energy is good or bad. I'm always talking about when we can activate and be in balance. If you are in balance with your energy, all energy is beautiful. It's when we're not in balance that then it's like, oh, okay. So I'm going to talk about that. But when you're in balance with Piscean energy, it is someone cuts themselves, you bleed. One is in pain, we are all in pain. And that is true, but we need the Pisces to remind us of that because they have the empathy. Dalai Lama talks about compassion. Pisces is empathy. Pisces is there is no you, there is no me, because there's a blending. It's amorphous water. That's why they're the best actors. They're shapeshifters. It's like they become other people right before your eyes, because it's that seamless, blendable energy. You know. So yeah, so it's incredibly creative. It's inspirational. It's incredibly compassionate and sensitive. Beyond, it's like the empathy. Go into that. But there's wonderfully there's it's wonderfully unifying, right? Which we don't really have any unification right now. And so when you meditate and when you do things like that, especially during Piscean energy or Piscean transits, Neptune transits to stimulate that, you get more bang for your buck because it's like that. It creates a desire to have a more ideal experience. There's an ethereal level to Pisces, right? Earth is grounding, and then the Pisces is, ooh, it's time to dream. It's like the Harry Potter magic wand. It's glamorous. It's magical. It's, ooh, what am I looking at? Oh, okay. So it's like, I always say, like, get your little Harry Potter wand out with Pisces and allow yourself to, like, what is what you imagine something to be. It's like the imagination can become real, and then you can make dreams come true with that energy. Okay, so Piscean energy that I've been talking about, how else can you get it? I have my Neptune, and these I want to show you a couple. Oh, it's right here. Okay, this is the Pisces card. Okay, and the little third eye there is like, okay. Now, Neptune is very important when we talk about Pisces, all right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about Neptune because it's saying, well, say you don't have Pisces in your chart, but maybe I have Neptune on my ascendant. I don't have any Pisces. This background I've mentioned is very Piscean. And I have a lot of Pisces qualities because Neptune is sensitizing that. So this is for, like, maybe you've got strong Neptune aspects in your chart. And even if you don't have that, guess what? Something called transits. As the planets keep moving, they form relationships with planets in our natal chart. And this activates and sensitizes the planets. So you will have some kind of Neptune transit. And then that will be a Pisces time. Okay. So what happens when Neptune really starts to activate something, okay? Because this is another way to think about what Piscean energy in general does. So what if Neptune activates your sun in a very, very strong way? Okay, so, and I'm going to try to show the both sides. So one, you can reach your highest levels. You're going to be, oh my gosh, especially creative, especially sensitive, especially, it increases intuition. And so there are a lot of beautiful gifts that it brings, but some things that also look out for, because Pisces, because it's that veil, you always have to work harder to figure out what in the world is really going on. And that's why when it's not in balance, Pisces is connected with deception. Healthy deception is acting, right? We all know that there, it's like legal deception. We know that that person is not really that person, acting. So, but then Pisces has that level of deception. It has the level of, because it's so amorphous and the boundaries dissolve during strong Piscean transits. Or if you have a lot of Pisces, there can even be an erosion of self, of, well, who am I? Oh my gosh. So you like have to really uh try harder to retain your identity, because not only are you so easy, just like, oh, I feel you completely, okay, but then you just let people in. It's just like, oh, people just like, it's like, you put moisturizer and it's just like, whoop, your body just sucks, your skin just sucks it up. It's like that. It's like, oh, okay, it's totally permeable. There's no, so you want to like get a little tougher skin when you have a lot of Pisces, or if you have a strong Neptune in your chart, or during a Neptune transit. Okay, you want to be aware of that you may not even realize that people are crossing so many boundaries. And now I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving medical advice, but in astrology it's a belief system, and there are medical things that we associate, but you always got to go to a doctor. But another thing people always want to know about, oh, their health and things to, so, okay, according to astrology, Pisces is connected to the lymphatic system. So it's a little sluggish. So you want to do yoga and things and walking, things that you don't have to do difficult exercises to stimulate the lymphatic system. You can do, check in with your doctor, as I said, but from what I know, walking and yoga, you can do that. And then you detoxify. And it's like, doing all of that can be very healthy. Now, according to astrology, though, Neptune, Pisces, all of that, it creates a sensitivity to drugs, to things like that, where some people can even consider things to be poison that other people would not. And so I always say, if you resonate to the Piscean energy for any of these reasons, or during a Neptune transit, if you're going to try a new medicine, I always say, well, make sure, this is good advice anyway, but always take it in the morning. Make sure that how you react to it, because generally there are surprise reactions where you need more or you need less of something with that. And it's because think about it, if it's so ethereal and it's not connected to the body, it's not earth, it's not, and so sometimes we even neglect our bodies because we're so into the other realm of the dream and of the utopian vision or of the creativity, right? That then it's like, oh, you got to remember. So, always check in with the doctor. But if you want to know, according to astrology, those are some things. So a strong Neptune transit. And if you've had, and that's why it's connected to addiction, where, if you have Pisces, if you have a strong Neptune or Neptune transit, and you have if you've had any problem with addiction, those are considered to be extra sensitive times where, uh, you could, for different reasons, it's going to be a little bit harder to control, and addictions can resurface. So make sure you're part of that support group, and make sure you're working closely with your sponsor during those times, because there could be, a little time. Now, also with Neptune transits, and if you have a strong Neptune, not only is it hard for other people to see you clearly, but that can go both ways depending on, because of the no boundaries. All right, so always work extra hard to define who you are to people, use your words, and make sure, well, what'd you hear, what do you think, did you hear what I like, did you hear what I want, always do those check-ins. Now, in addition, with with Pisces and Neptune. Okay, a couple of examples of what can happen. You can also underestimate your opponent because Neptune creates the ideal and you're in this utopian bliss of, but we can, we're all going to get along and we're, you cut yourself, I bleed. Okay. So, then you can underestimate your opponent because it's harder to see things clearly and that level of deception can come in. So a couple of things like Tim Kaine and Hillary Clinton, all right? I can tell you, Tim Kaine had Neptune he had a major Neptune transit. Um, and Hillary Clinton has beautiful Pisces moon. That's why she really does feel what everybody's going through. Okay. And so it they had beautiful visionary energy as a team, right? And everybody thought that they were going to win, right? When you look at that. And it's like that feeling of like, oh my gosh, what, are you kidding me? It's like, how could you even imagine not? But it's like, underestimating because that happens. So it's like when you have that transit, even with somebody that you feel like there's no way that person can win. There's no way this is going on. There's no way. Well, that's what I've learned the hard way, that there is a way. So when you're under strong Neptune transits, whatever's going on, you double and triple check and that there's a way. Even what you think is, the more you say no way to something, the more that there's a way. So keep that in mind. And also when I said like the sense of self, Queen Elizabeth, when she became queen, all right, she had to become queen, something that's, most people would be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But her father had to die, right? So something terrible had to happen for her to become queen. And all that happened under a hard Neptune transit in her chart. And she was young, starting her life, went off on she was starting this tour. She was very young for that. And so to have that happen, a tremendous loss and change under a Neptune transit, it also reveals uh, maybe what that person was feeling at that time, of like there could be a total sense loss of, oh, okay, there's a total dissolution, a loss of self, because she became queen even though she was ready. She didn't think it was going to be that soon. She thought she had a little more time. Okay. And so it was like she was going to figure out who she was, and then she's going to become queen. And it was like, whoa, you really. So that's another thing of astrology that people like to say, what's going to happen because this is happening here. And it's like, it's also another way to look at it is what happens to somebody, you know, does a death happen when Neptune squares your ascendant? Does it happen when Uranus is on your Venus? Does it happen? What's going on in your chart? When somebody gets married, right? Or when one of these big things happen, you're going to be able to say through astrology, whether it was a shock, whether it was they lost their sense of self, whether, oh my gosh, this was life altering. This is more life altering than they anticipated. So that's why astrology is symbolic, right? And you bring your cultural imprint to it. You bring your socioeconomic background. So you've got to share all that as much as possible. The more you share honestly with your astrologer, the more you're going to get out of it, because that's how astrology works, people. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to use it for as a tool for transformation, which it is, okay, then that's how you use it. All right. Because, you can have very similar charts, as I've said. And one person's going to be queen and another person is, living a very different life. Okay. And they're going to have some same, very similar transits, exact same transits. But that's why it's filtered through those imprints, right? And then you got to make the symbolism personal to you, because it's cyclical, a lot of it, and a lot of it we respond in very similar ways. So then you take all this into consideration. Now, okay, so that's, think about the Neptune and those transits. So I would just say, I just saw Russell Brand and he had his podcast, Under the Skin. And I just love this. So let's just, normally it's like I got my tagline. This is actually his intro. He was saying, together we can awaken. Together we can ascend. And then he said, together we can come up with some new ideas. And I was just like, was like, okay, chills. I love that. And with Aquarius energy and Pisces, Pisces is together. Pisces is the Rockettes. You form one line. Okay. Pisces is together, and Aquarius come up with some new ideas. Oh my gosh. All right. Yeah. So until next time, enjoy. I'll just add my tagline. It's not quite as good as that one, but enjoy and embrace transformation.